Good morning, student. Today we will discuss our new chapters biomechanics and sports. Biomechanics. Biomechanics is derived from the Greek word bio and mechanics. Bio means living things and mechanics is a field of physics. Thus, it is a branch of science which deal with the and force related to the body. Okay, biomechanics means it is the study of force and its effect on a human beings. according uh, according to Miller Kin, biomechanics involve the applications of mechanical law to the living structures. Means application of mechanical law to the living things. According to Flexer Partners, it is a science concerned with the actions of force, internal or external, on the living things. What happened if the force applied on the human body? Biomechanics helps to understand the human movement when different force act upon it. Okay, this is biomechanics. Biomechanics Bio means living things and mechanic is a field of physics. So biomechanics is the study of effect of force effect study the force and its effects on human body. Biomechanics helps to understand the human movement when the force is applied on it. Importance of biomechanics in sports. First is understanding the human movement. Kinesiology and biomechanics give us better understanding of human movement because in biomechanics we study about about the force. What will happen if the force act on a human body? So biomechanics helps to understand the movement, various human movement. Knowledge about force on the body. It helps. It helps the knowledge about the force, about the various force acting upon it, various force acting upon the body. Efficient efficient movement. It provides good knowledge to perform efficient movement as it helps to develop good skill. Efficient movement. If we know about the movement, about the force, it helps. It helps to improve our movement. Correct movement. It's help to correct the fault movement. Thus, movement is effective and efficient. With the help of biomechanics, we understand. We understand the movement. What will happen when the force act on it? Okay, we know about the law of motion. Law of motion's gravity. What are the effect of gravity on our body? Equilibrium, etc. So it helps to the knowledge of this helps to correct our movement. Prevent injury. Knowledge of kinesiology and biomechanics helps to reduce the injury. Moreover, it prevent cause of injury through movement. If we know the proper movement, if we know the proper movements, it helps to reduce the injury. Improve performance. It's helped to improve the performance of the individual by developing a good technique and training methods. Biomechanics helps to develop the good technique, good training methods. Okay? It helps to understand the good techniques and good training methods. Therefore, it helps to improve performance. Knowledge about physics principles. It gives us knowledge about physics in relation with human movement like principle and law of motion, levers and types in body, equilibrium, various force, projectiles, aerodynamics, etc. guides safety principle. This subject guide us the safety principles and prevent injury. Helps in research work. Biomechanics principles helps in research work and direct the scientific approach. Helps in developing new tools. Biomechanics helps to develop the new tools, new equipment for the human movement according to the activity, according to the sports activity requirement. Types of movement. There are various type of movement like flexions, extensions, abductions, adductions, elevation, etc. First, let's talk about flexion. Flexion is bending of movement. Flexion is bending of movement that decrease the angle between the joint. Okay, flexions, when the angles between the body parts decrease, is known as flexion. For examples, bending the elbow, it decrease the angle between the joint. Okay, so it is a flexion, means uh, bending movement that decrease the angle between the body. For example, bending the elbow, etc. Extension is the opposite of flexion. uh, uh, in in extensions in extension extensions mean increasing the angle between the body part. The angles between the body part increase. Okay, for examples, um, for examples uh, standing up, it increase the angle between the joint of the knee. Okay, this is the example of extensions, means strengthening movement. And flexion means bending movement. Okay, bending movement which cause reduction of angles between the body part. Extension means strengthening movement that increase the angle between the body part. For example, standing up, knee are stand, etc. Next is abduction. Abductions means movement away from the midline of the body. It refers to the motion. Abductions, it refers to the motion that pull the structure of body part from the midline of the body. For example, rising the arm, okay, rising the arm, this is the abduction is opposite of uh, abduction. Abductions means bending bending the body parts. Okay, adduction described as bending the body movements toward the midline of the body. Abductions mean movement that is away from the midline of the body, and adduction means movements towards the midline of the body. For examples, uh, dropping the arms to the side, or bringing the knee together. Abduction. Okay, this is flexion. In this, the angle, okay, the angle is decrease, the bending movement, the angles between the body part movement. And extensions mean lengthening of body part, means that increase angle between the body part. Abductions means movements away from the midline. This is your midline, and the movement away from midline is known as abduction. And adductions mean movements toward the midline. This is your midline, and movement towards the midline, it is known as adduction. Next is Elevation. Elevations refers to the movement in a superior direction. ठीक है, elevations movements movement towards the superior direction, and depression means movement in a inferior direction. Superior directions, ठीक है, elevations. For examples, surging, it's an example of elevations, and depression, it is the opposite of elevations. For example, this is your elevations movement, a movement in superior direction, and this is your depression uh, movement in inferior direction. Okay, elevation upward, depression downward. Next is circumduction. Circumduction is a circular movement circular movement of the body part. This is circular movement. Okay, circumduction is circular movement of the body part, and such as in ball and socket joint. Circumduction, for example, bowling in a cricket, etc. This is circumduction. And internal rotations means rotation toward the axis of the body, and external means rotation away from the center of the body. Internal rotation, internal means toward the axis of body, external means away from the axis of the body. Pronation means pronation when in the anatomical position that forearm is rotated so that the palm of the head face backward, and if the elbow is flexed so that the forearm is horizontal, the palm of the head, and this means pronation. Pronation means proline is proline means lying on your tummy. Okay, pronations means lying on your tummy, and supine means lying in your back. Pronation, this is your pronation, lying in your tummy, and this is your supinations, lying on your back. Or for examples, flexion is bending of joint so as to bring the parts it connect. Okay, bending of joint that reduce the angle between the joint. Extension means strengthening of joint that increase the angle between the joint. Abductions means movements toward the midline, and adductions means movement away from the midline. Circumduction means circular movement of a body part. Rotation, in rotation, medial, internal rotation and external rotation. Internal rotation means rotation toward the axis, and external means rotation away from the center of the body. Pronation and supination. Pronations means lying on your tummy, and supination means lying on your backward. Your face, your palm of the hand is turned to the face forward, upward direction. Inversion and eversion. Inversion means turning inward of the plantar axis of the foot. अपने foot को अंदर की तरफ bend करना. Eversion means turning outward of your plantar axis of the foot. Opposite direction में उसको आउटर डायरेक्शन में टर्न करना. इन्वर्जन मीन्स अपने फुट को इनवर्ड टर्न करना, एंड इवर्जन मीन्स टर्निंग योर फुट outward. Dorsiflexion. Dorsiflexion means pull the toe and foot towards the body. Okay, pulling your toe and foot toward the body. And plantar flexion means um, pointing out the toe and foot away from the body. Proline means lying on your tummy, and supine means lying on your back. law of Law of motion and its application in sports. Man is said to be man of action. Thus, movement are involved everywhere. For every movement there is a motion. Thus, everything that moves is governed by law of motion. Okay, every movement, every movement for every movement there is a motion. So everything that moves is governed by the law of motion. This law is formulated by Isaac Newton in 1687. He explained and investigated that every motion is under the impact of this law of motion. There are three laws of motion. First law of motion, also known as law of inertia. Second law of motion, also known as law of acceleration. And third law of motion, also known as law of action and reaction. Law of inertia. First law of motion. According according to this law, an object at rest will remain at rest, or an object in motion will remain at a constant velocity unless act upon by some external force. According to this, an object will not move or remain at stationary position unless a force is applied. Agar means if the object is at rest, he will remain at rest. If the object is in motion, it will remain in motion जब तक हम कोई एक्सटर्नल फोर्स अप्लाई नहीं करते. This is first law of motion. For examples, a football placed at a penalty corners will remain at rest unless a player kick the ball and ball to move the ball toward the goalpost. And it will move in the direction where the player had exerted the force through the kick. Okay, means okay, if the object is at rest, it will remain at rest, and if the object is in motion, it will remain in motion unless the external force is applied on it. Second law of motion, also known as law of acceleration. According to this law of motion, the rate of change in velocity, that is acceleration, of an object is directly proportional to the force applied and inversely proportional to the mass of the object. That is, the greater the force, for examples, force is mass into acceleration, or you can say acceleration is force upon mass. So, greater the force applied, the faster is the velocity and more is the displacement. And if the force applied is less, then the displacement is less. Moreover, the acceleration is also less. If unequal force are applied two objects of equal mass, greater force will cause more acceleration. If the equal force are applied to object of unequal mass, the greater mass will have less acceleration. For example, heavier the ball, ठीक है, जितना भारी बॉल होगा, the greater the force is required to change its direction and speed. This is known as second law of motion. Also, a volleyball player push the ball slowly for a drop, whereas hit the ball hard for a smash. Thus, drop is slow as there is less force, whereas smash is very fast as there is greater force involvement. ठीक है, जितना आप फोर्स लगाओगे उतना ही डिस्प्लेसमेंट होगा. अगर कम फोर्स लगाओगे तो कम डिस्प्लेसमेंट. अगर ऑब्जेक्ट इफ द ऑब्जेक्ट इज हैवियर, ठीक है, इफ द मास ऑफ द ऑब्जेक्ट इज हैवियर देन मोर फोर्स इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर द डिस्प्लेसमेंट. Okay, the rate of change in velocity of an object is directly proportional to the force applied and inversely proportional to the mass of the body. Last, third law of motion, also known as law of action and reaction. According to this law, for every action there is equal and opposite reaction. Okay, for every action there is equal and opposite reaction. For examples, in swimming, if a player pushes the water backward, in returns he pushes forward, the water pushes him forward. Or an athlete pushes the starting block backward and thus the athlete is pushed forward. This is the third law of motion. For every action there is equal and opposite reaction. In swimming, जितना पावर से आप बैकवर्ड पुश करोगे उतने ही पावर से वाटर्स आपको आगे की तरफ फॉरवर्ड पुश करेगा. Okay, law of motion. Law of motion. There are three law of motion. First is law of inertia, law of acceleration, the law of action and reaction. In first law of motion, if the object is at rest, it will remain at rest, and if the object is in motion, it will remain in motion unless the external force is applied on it. And according to the second law, the rate of change in velocity of an object is directly proportional to the force applied and inversely proportional to the mass of the body. And third law is law of action and reactions, means for every action there is equal and opposite reaction. And the frictional and force, this is cut in your syllabus. The friction and sports is cut from your syllabus. We have complete our 8th unit, biomechanic and sports. Biomechanic, let's once again I will repeat it. Okay, once again, biomechanic means bio means living things and mechanic is related to the physics. So in biomechanics we study the force and its effect. Okay, its force and its effect on human being, on a living things. What will happen if the force is applied on the living things, we study in biomechanics. Importance of biomechanics, it helps to understand the human movement. With the help of biomechanics, we know about the movement, knowledge about force on the human body. What will happen force on the body, knowledge about force on the human body, efficient movement, correct movement, prevent from injury, improve performance, knowledge about physics principle, guide safety principles, help in research work, help in developing new tools. Types of movement. Flexion means flexion means bending movement. Bending movement where bending movement that decrease the angle between the body part. For example, bending your elbow. Extension means strengthening movement that increase the angle between the joint. For examples, for example, strengthening your elbow, अपने elbow को straight करना. या फिर standing up, this is extension. Abduction means movement away from the midline, उस midline से away, ठीक है, दूर मूव करना, movement away from the midline. For examples, raising your arm, अपने arm को ऊपर की तरफ ले जाना. Adduction means motion toward the midline of the body, movement toward the midline of the body. For examples, opposite of adduction जो राइजिंग हैंड है उसको डाउनवर्ड पुश करना. राइजिंग योर ड्रॉपिंग द आर्म्स और ब्रिंगिंग द नीज टुगेदर. Eversion means movement in a superior direction, ऊपर की तरफ. And depression means movement in inferior directions, downward. Internal rotation means rotation toward the axis of the body, अपने axis of body की तरफ rotate करना. And external rotation means rotation away from the axis of the body. For example, neck को sideward turn करना, ठीक है, neck को sideward turn करना is known as external rotation. फिर साइड से अंदर की तरफ रोटेट करना is known as internal rotation. And circumduction means circular movement of the body part. For examples, during the bowling, ठीक है, in cricket during the bowling, ठीक है, in ball and socket joint, ठीक है, अपने shoulder is known as ball and socket joint. So in that joint, circumduction, rotation movement. For example, in bowling, supine position and proline position. Supine position means lying on your back, ठीक है, lying on your back, your face will be upward. And proline means lying on your tummy, your face will be downward. And inversions means turning inwards, turning your foot inward. And eversion means turning your foot outward. Dorsiflexion means pulling your foot, toe and foot towards the body के towards अपने toe और foot को pull करना. And plantar flexion means pointing the toe and foot away from the body, अपने body के away from the body.